Hey, what's up, guys? So today I'm working on the 240. I've been bleeding the brakes for like the last day and a half for whatever reason. Well, no, I actually know what the reason is. So the brakes were super old, and when I would open up the bleeder was letting air into the bleeder. So then it was just redepositing the air into the system. So I took out each bleeder and I kind of sanded it down on the wire wheel, whatever you want to call it. Cleaned it up on the wire wheel, and then I wrapped it in some Teflon tape and put it back in. Of course, making sure to not block the hole or anything. And now the brakes are actually working really well. And then I just got done bleeding the clutch as well. So now that that's all done, I can move on to some other things. So now that the brakes are all bled, the coolant's bled as well. The heat works. There's no leaks in the coolant system. There's no leaks in the brake system either. So pretty much at this point, the only thing I have to do is swap in my coilovers. Now, I got sponsored on a set of max heating rods for this build. They're a great affordable option for coilovers, and I'm going to be putting them on the car today and letting you guys know how they feel. So once I get them on, I'm gonna take the car for a drive, and then we'll really get to enjoy this thing, because this will be the first drive in this car, and it'll be the first drive in this car with the new components. So I'm pretty excited to do that. So I'm going to unbox the coilovers, show them to you guys, show you how to install them, and then let you know how I feel about them. So we'll get to it. Let's get these things open and see how they look. Super nice packaging. It came like 2-day priority mail through FedEx, so it showed up really quickly. The box is really nice, packed well, so it would seem. Once again, huge thank you to Max Heating Rods for sending me out some coilovers for the S13 build. Definitely helps speed things up a little bit here, get the car running and driving. So yeah, let's see how these look. Got some packing stuff. Got some adjustment tools, so that's really useful. Let's see. This appears to be a rear coilover. Really nice looking bushings. Heavy duty. They look really good. So I'm going to pull out a front one, show you that, and I'm gonna get them on the car. Look at that. These things look fantastic, not even gonna lie. So as you guys can see, they pack these up really well. Super safe shipping. It comes with all your hardware for the top hats, which is nice, because if you're like me and you like 240SXs, you know how often people like to take their hardware when they sell you their coilovers. So yeah, it's really nice to have that there. It doesn't have the ones for the knuckles, but your stock bolts will work for that, so that's not a big deal. So yeah, I'm going to start getting these all put on the car. I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. It's pretty easy on a 240SX, but I'm gonna show you anyways. So yeah, let's get to it. First thing you're gonna wanna do, we're starting with the rear coilovers, of course. First thing you're gonna wanna do is remove the top hat bolts from your previous coilovers, or if you're running stock struts, just remove the 2 bolts. Generally, those bolts are gonna be 14mm, so take the both of them off, and then we'll meet you down on the other side of the car. Next, you're gonna want to remove your retaining nut from the knuckle itself. Generally, these are a 17mm castle nut. So once you loosen that with your wrench, pull that off. Pull off your washer too, set them to the side and do not lose them. Then you can just take the coilover, give it a couple taps, and it should come right out. There you go. There's the old coilover. So got the new coilover here. Now when you put it on, you want to make sure that your bushing faces outward. There's a tip on the knuckle that it slides onto, and this needs to come over it, so when you crank the washer on, everything sits snug. Get your ride height as close to the last one as possible. If you had coilovers on, then of course if you're going lower, then that's something you're gonna have to mess with yourself. Put it back in the way you took it out. I'm gonna slide this in through the top. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to lube up the knuckle that it slides onto. Grease definitely helped there. Prior to putting grease on, the coilover wouldn't slide on. Put some grease on, coilover slid right on. Get that all tightened in there. Now I'm gonna grab a jack and lift up my whole suspension, my whole rear lower control arm, just so I can get that up in there and hold it steady so I'm not struggling. Here we go. Once you get it through, jack it up, hold it in there. Now that you got your coilover raised up in, go ahead and throw on your bolts. Those nice and snug. All right, moving on to the front. This looks to be a 14mm bolt. And then you got these two on the neck of the knuckle that you got to take off. Don't mind all my stuff missing bolts. This is just because these are coilovers that I use on like cars like this that are going to be on jack stands, or you know what, they're roller coilovers basically. So yeah, I just got to put enough on there to keep them, they keep the car rolling. So yeah, I'm going to pull that off and I'm going to put on the fronts. This would probably be a great time to thank you guys for all your support too. I know that my content probably isn't directed towards the people who watch it as much as it should be, but I have so much going on that it's really hard to specifically focus on game plans for videos or planning the content or stuff like that. I'm just one person, and on top of learning how to build the cars, making sure I'm getting the right stuff for the cars, making the content, editing the content, getting it up, promoting it. It's a lot of stuff to take on as one person, and generally when you see teams like Donut Media or other popular places like Fitment Industries, they do this stuff because they have a team. They have a team of people who are versed in each specific category, who collectively take the load off of one person. Not that that's any sort of excuse. I'm not making an excuse here. I'm just trying to clue you guys in a little bit as to why I'm not uploading as much as I would like to be, or my videos aren't as specific as you'd like them to be, or I'm not focusing on like the cars you guys want me to be. It's just it's a lot, and I'm kind of working through the motions of learning how to plan it all out and get content out at a rate that makes you guys feel like I'm getting somewhere and you guys are learning and staying engaged and all that stuff. So, work with me here. I'm getting there. We'll get there. So, yeah, besides that, I'll get back to the 240. Alright, so as you guys know, for the past few weeks, we've been trying to iron out the idle issues on the KA, and they ended up exposing themselves in another way, which I'm actually more thankful for, because now I don't have to drive the car when it's bogging and acting all weird. So yesterday, I had this thing running, as I was driving it in gear on jack stands, and then I finished bleeding the brakes, so I threw on the coilovers, right? Shout out to Max Speeding Rods for the coilovers, by the way. You guys definitely need to check out their products. They're really well priced, and they make a plethora of parts for all the cars that we're into. So definitely check them out. So after I got it on coilovers and put it on the ground, the car wouldn't start anymore. And I was pretty stumped. I went around and I checked all the fuses, all the relays, and I couldn't find anything. And then I ended up seeking some outside perspective for some help, and I was told to check my ignition switch. So my buddy Paul, who you guys have seen in a couple videos now, he actually gave me some 240 parts like a month ago, and in those 240 parts was an ignition switch. So I swapped in that ignition switch, which has no play in the tumbler, and the car actually started right up. And when it started right up, it actually idled very, very well, which is something that hasn't happened at all since I've gotten the car running. So not only was the ignition switch getting low voltage and causing the car to bog down, it also ended up failing altogether and stopping the car from starting. So now the car starts, it runs again, it's on the ground, and I really want to drive this thing. What I don't know is if the brakes are bled all the way, so we're going to find out. But I'm going to move this out of the garage and at least bring it around the yard a little bit and get a feel for how it all feels. And if it feels good enough, then maybe I'll drive it around the block. Alright, so as you know, I put the 240 on the ground and then it wouldn't start. It turned out it was the ignition switch. After going through some diagnosing, I ended up narrowing it down to the ignition switch. I originally thought it was the distributor / cam angle sensor, because that's what reads the position of your cams and then tells the ECU to fire your spark and fire your fuel. And I wasn't getting spark and I wasn't getting fuel. The only time I was getting both of those was when I would stop cranking the key, which points towards the ignition switch. So I ended up replacing my distributor because I thought that was the issue, and by doing that I put the car out of time again. So even though it starts up, the moment you put throttle on it, it shuts right off, which is obviously a timing issue. So yeah, I'll start the car up and show you, and I'll show you what it does, and then I'm going to proceed to redo the timing again. And once it's good, this thing should fire right up and it should run just fine. And then we'll test out these coilovers. So let's show you guys, and then we'll fix it, and then we'll give the car its first drive. So here we go. Didn't shut off that time, but the turbo is spooling up instantly, which definitely is not right at all. It's kind of scary, actually. I'm terrified to rev on it. This is like the second or third time it actually stayed running when I started it, which I'm a little surprised about. But literally the moment I put throttle on it, you can hear the turbo spooling up. So I'm not even gonna try to do that to the car. But yeah, I'm going to pop off the timing cover, get this thing cranked around to top dead center, and then put the distributor back in. So let's get to it.
Got through.
All right, well, the 240 is running, so I'm gonna attempt to drive it even though the brakes are really choppy. We're gonna see how this is gonna go. So, time for the moment of truth. Alright, so I got the coilovers on. I drove the car as you saw. It feels great until I hit the brakes, of course, and then when I hit the brakes it like gets all loud and squeaky and feels terrible because something's not right within the braking system. But the coilovers feel fantastic. Ride's really smooth. I hit a couple bumps and it didn't it didn't bounce too much. Yeah, all in all, great products. So definitely check out Max Speeding Rod's coilovers if you're not trying to spend a bunch of money on a set of coilovers. It's a really good budget option, and they seem to perform well. So of course I'll get more time in on them when the car starts to ride better after I iron out whatever's going on with the brakes. And then eventually I'm going to be putting this car sideways. So when that day happens, we'll see how the Max Speeding Rod's coilovers holds up. But I imagine they're going to be pretty good. I've heard pretty good things about them. So yeah. I'm going to end the video here though. So like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.